This series has quickly taken over my channel. If you wanted to see my other rankings on other Batman villains in live action, links down below like always. Unlike those villains, Deadshot's only ever appeared in 3 live action projects, which is a limit for me to make a ranking on the character. However, I'm pointing it out because that means it's going to be a shorter video. Also, 3 being my limit means I can't rank characters like Talia Al Ghul, Professor Pig, Man-Bat, and even Magpie, since they only ever appeared 2 times or 1 time in live action, even if they are popular Batman villains. Although Pig is supposedly getting a movie, so that might change in the future. But back to Deadshot. Also want to make very clear that this is my own personal opinion. I point it out because I do think that this is probably one of the more controversial rankings, at least as to who's number 1 and who's number 2. I think number 3 is pretty clear. But you can disagree with me. Either way, let's get into it. Third and last place is Smallville, where Deadshot was played by Bradley Stryker, who only appeared in 2 episodes in the final season, and even got to join the Suicide Squad, a team that oddly never appeared all at once on screen on the show. Unlike most, if not all, this version isn't based on the modern iteration of Floyd Lawton. Instead, he's more based off his 50s counterpart, with a more cowboy theme, which in my personal opinion isn't really a good idea, nor does it really work in this setting for an assassin character. This isn't a bad take on Deadshot, just a different one from what most are used to. And unlike the other versions, this one isn't used all that much, making him, in my personal opinion, the worst live-action Deadshot. Which, yet again, isn't a bad Deadshot, just not any higher than the other 2. I do think that Bradley Stryker attempts to do his best in this role. However, in my opinion, it doesn't really need to be Deadshot in this role. It could have been any marksman. The character being Deadshot really doesn't add much to the story itself. Although I will admit, the episode that he appears in where he tries to hunt down Cat Grant was a pretty fun episode.
You don't know the half of the abuse.
Number 2 might be controversial since I'm putting him in number 2 and not 1, which is Will Smith. Now, I don't like the Suicide Squad movie for many reasons, however I do think that Will Smith as Deadshot is one of the stronger parts of the movie. Will Smith, I think, is doing his best in a role that is in a pretty crappy movie. In fact, I think that his scenes are probably the best in the entire film. I would say Harley Quinn's too, however, she's paired up with Jared Leto Joker, and it doesn't really work. Deadshot does feel deserving of being the team leader, or at least the team leader of the villains. Since technically Rick Flag is the team leader, and before him is Amanda Waller, so Floyd Lawton is technically in 3rd. The costume design, I think, is the best live-action version of Deadshot, in a visual manner. I think it looks cool with both the mask and without it. However, the reason why he's number 2 and not number 1 is because I do have some issues with this iteration as well. Because, like how Rick Flag says, he's a serial killer who takes credit card, yet he plays victim a lot. He feels a little too whiny for Deadshot. I'm not saying he can't love his daughter, of course he can. However, I think he needs to accept responsibility for his actions at a certain point. I do think that Will Smith should have returned for this role, as I do think he could have actually made it much better in a potentially better movie. However, that never happened, and the DCEU is now over, which means no more Deadshot, or at least no more Will Smith Deadshot. Another thing I think was a little odd is his romance with Harley Quinn, which is not exactly a romance but implied to be more of a flirtation. I never liked that pairing, I never liked it. And even in this movie, the two of them don't come across as romantic, they come across like friends. Therefore, the attempt to have them kind of be together feels very forceful. And even though they don't actually end up being together, the implications are, in my personal opinion, done way too brash for this type of movie. Okay, it's not for this type of movie. Just too brash in general. And number 1 is Arrow, played by Michael Rowe. This version is less of a villain for Green Arrow, but more of one for John Diggle. The two of them have a very personal storyline about Deadshot having supposedly killed John Diggle's brother. I say supposedly because he didn't. However, John Diggle did believe that, as did Deadshot. This version of Deadshot also is more sympathetic, but still a villain, as he has a more tragic backstory. That being that he became a villain because of the fact that after his PTSD made him more violent, he lost his family. Lost as in they are still alive, they just don't want to see him anymore. For very understandable reasons. His connection with Diggle also creates problems when he's teamed up with Diggle on the Suicide Squad, which leads to Diggle actually forgiving Deadshot, who at this point is semi-reformed. And while I do not like that he dies, I do think that the way he does go out is the perfect way for the character to die. That being that Floyd sacrifices his life for John, and Lila and Cupid. However, specifically for Lila and John, so they can be with their family again. Which is very, very touching, considering how Deadshot lost his family, and that he was believed to have actually killed his brother. And now goes as far as killing himself to save who he at one point believed to be his enemy. My only complaint about this version is that his storyline is cut short because of the fact that DC told the CW to kill the character off, as they didn't want 2 Deadshots in live action, only for them to not even use Will Smith as Deadshot. I mean, they used him once, but that was it. I'm not salty. I'm very salty about this still. He really was, in my personal opinion, the best. Well, best live-action Deadshot. I do think that the animated version of the character that appeared on JLU is a bit better. However, as live-action Deadshots go, I think that this version from Arrow is the best, and deserving of the #1 spot. I'm sorry, Will Smith fans. I'm also a Will Smith fan, but I do think that he's #2. And that's my ranking. I really like Deadshot as a character. Although I will admit, I do think that he can be sometimes overused, especially in the Suicide Squad comics. Since while I like the character, I want to see other members of the team. I want to see new characters on the actual roster, which the character actually isn't a part of anymore. So I guess I got my wish, and ironically, I kind of regret having that wish. I know, I'm a hypocrite. But hey, I know I'm not the only one. Anyways, that's the end of the video. Follow my Twitter and my Instagram down below. Or don't, you don't have to do what I say. Please like, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Or I won't. Yet again, you don't have to do what I say. Bye!